There is a moment in Goodfellas where the whole movie seems to stop breathing. Not when Billy Batts gets killed, not when Tommy loses his mind. Before that, it happens at the table, a few smiles, a few drinks, a couple of old stories, a man fresh out of prison enjoying his welcome home, another man walking in already irritated before a single insult has been thrown. And somewhere in those first few seconds, before the shouting, before the famous line, before the violence, the entire ending is already hiding in the room. Because the Billy Batts scene is not really about one joke going too far. It is about hierarchy. It is about pride. It is about one man who thinks his rank makes him untouchable, and another man who thinks he has outgrown the humiliation of his past. And when those two things collide in a room full of gangsters, somebody is going to die. Actually, in this case, both of them are. That is what makes this scene so brilliant. The first time you watch it, it feels simple. Billy pushes Tommy too far. Tommy is unstable. Tommy snaps. End of story. But when you go back and really slow the scene down, it becomes much more complicated, because then you start asking the better question. Who was actually at fault? Was Billy Batts the aggressor, using his status to humiliate a younger guy in front of the room? Was Tommy the obvious problem, too insecure and too unstable to handle the kind of ball breaking that everybody in that world is supposed to take? Or was the whole thing doomed from the second Tommy walked in and refused to play the role Billy expected from him? That is what I want to get into today, because this is one of the smartest scenes in the whole film. And the more you look at it, the more it tells you not just about Billy and Tommy, but about the mob itself. Because there are really two ways to judge what happens here. There is the normal human way, and then there is the Mafia way, and those two answers are not exactly the same. Now, before we get into the fault question, let's set the scene properly. Goodfellas, of course, is Martin Scorsese's classic mob film based on Nicholas Pileggi's book Wise Guy. And one of the reasons it still feels so alive is because it does not present mob life like a distant legend. It presents it like a social world, a living environment, a culture with its own rules, its own rhythms, its own jokes, its own layers of power, and its own forms of humiliation. That is important, because the Billy Batts scene works not just because somebody gets offended, but because everybody in the room understands the rules of this little social universe. Batts comes home after doing 6 years in prison. That alone matters. A man has done time, kept his mouth shut, and returned. In mob culture, that gives him a certain standing. It demands a certain respect. He is supposed to be welcomed, embraced, recognized. This is not just some random bar night. This is his return. And then Tommy walks in, already annoyed, already dragging energy into the room, already acting like he resents the whole situation. Billy calls him over. Once, twice, more than once, really. And Tommy delays. He does not come right away. He hesitates. He looks irritated. He mutters that he forgot Billy was getting out that day. And that is where the scene really begins, because even before any direct insult, Tommy is already doing something dangerous. He is withholding respect. That may sound like a small thing, but in that world, it is not small at all. Who you greet, how quickly you greet them, how warm you are, whether you stand up, whether you smile, whether you kiss the guy on both cheeks, all of that matters. These are not just social niceties. These are signs of hierarchy, signals. You are constantly telling the room who matters and who does not. And Tommy, from the second he enters, is telling Billy that he does not feel like paying tribute. That is mistake number one. Because if we strip away the mob stuff for just a second and look at it like a normal social interaction, Tommy is immediately the one making things weird. A guy has just come home from 6 years in prison. He is being celebrated. The easy move, the grown-up move, the intelligent move is obvious. You go over, you shake his hand, you give him the hug, you say he looks good, and then you move on with your night. Even if you do not like him, That is what adults do. We all have people we do not want to see, and sometimes we still smile, make small talk, and get through it. Tommy cannot do that, or maybe he will not do that. And that tells you a lot about who he is. Because Tommy's problem is not just anger. Tommy's problem is identity. He has built himself into this feared, dangerous gangster. And Billy represents something he hates. Somebody from the past who knew him before the image was complete. Somebody who can look at him and still see the kid underneath the suit. That is why Tommy is uncomfortable before Billy has really done anything at all. He is not just annoyed that Billy is back. He is threatened by what Billy remembers. And then Billy calls him over and greets him in that very physical, very old school way. He hugs him. He kisses him. He says, he looks terrific. And Tommy says, watch the suit. Now that line is one of the keys to the whole scene, because it lands with far more hostility than Tommy probably realizes. Billy is approaching him warmly, maybe even affectionately, and Tommy responds like a guy dealing with an inconvenience. It is cold, it is stiff, it is almost contemptuous, and once Billy feels that, the whole mood changes. So was Billy being patronizing from the start? Honestly, watching the scene carefully, I do not think so. I really do not. I think at first, Billy seems genuinely pleased to see him. He has been away a long time. Here is little Tommy, all grown up, wearing sharp clothes, making money, doing well. Billy seems amused by it, maybe even charmed by it. But then he gets hit with Tommy's attitude, and from that point on, he starts pushing back. That is an important distinction, because I think a lot of people remember Billy as if he walked in trying to destroy Tommy from the first second, and I do not think the scene supports that. I think Tommy creates the first rupture. Billy then responds to it. Now, Billy's response is not innocent either. Once he realizes Tommy is not playing along, he starts testing him. He says, "Don't get too big on me now." And that line is such a perfect little mob line because it does two things at once. On the surface, it is playful. Beneath the surface, it is corrective. Billy is saying, in effect, I see what you are trying to do here, and I am not going to let you pull rank on me. That is where the interaction starts to turn. And from here, you can really feel the two men talking past each other emotionally. Billy still thinks this is something he can control through status and humor. Tommy is already too deep in his own insecurity to see any of it as lighthearted. Billy thinks he is reestablishing the proper order. Tommy thinks he is being cut down in front of everybody. And then Tommy says, "Just don't go busting my balls, okay?" This is another huge moment because it is a complete mood killer. They are in a room where ball breaking is part of the culture. That is what these guys do. They joke, they needle, they test each other. But Tommy, instead of rolling with it or deflecting it, lays down a little line in the sand. He tells Billy not to do the very thing that Billy and everyone else in the room see as normal male social behavior. And Billy does not like that at all. Because now Tommy is not just being moody, now Tommy is acting like he can set terms. And in Billy's mind, Tommy has not earned that right. So when Billy says, "If I was going to break your balls, I'd tell you to go home and get your shinebox," that is the moment where things truly escalate. Not because it is the worst thing he could have said, but because it is so precisely chosen. Billy is basically saying, I have been holding back, but since you want to act like this, let me remind you of where you come from. It is a social correction disguised as a joke. And Tommy hears it exactly as humiliation. Now here is where the real fault question starts getting interesting, because at this point both men have crossed lines. Tommy was wrong to come in with that attitude. He was wrong to ignore Billy, wrong to be cold, wrong to act insulted by a basic greeting, and wrong to challenge the mood of the room. If he had simply behaved like a functioning adult, none of this probably happens. But Billy is also making a decision now. He could let it go. He could laugh, move on, and keep the party smooth. Instead, once he senses that Tommy is insecure, he starts pressing right on the bruise. He tells the shoe-shining story. He goes on and on about it. He performs it. He makes sure other people are laughing. He turns Tommy into entertainment. That is not an accident. At that point, Billy is absolutely trying to put Tommy back in his place. And why would he do that? Because Tommy's attitude offended him. That is the part that gets missed sometimes. Billy is not doing this in a vacuum. He feels disrespected too. He just got out after 6 years. This younger guy walks in and acts like he is above greeting him properly. From Billy's point of view, that is outrageous. So now he wants to remind Tommy and remind the room that there is a rank difference here, that he is not just some loud kid at the bar, that he is Billy Bats. And this is where the Mafia context changes everything. Because if you judge the scene by ordinary standards, you can say something like this: Billy should not have humiliated Tommy, but Tommy should have been mature enough to take a joke. That is fair enough. But if you judge the scene by Mafia standards, the balance shifts. Because Billy is a made man. Tommy is not. And in that world, that means Billy has enormous latitude. He is not Tommy's equal. He is above him, massively above him. A made guy is protected. He belongs to the structure. He has status, immunity, institutional weight. A non-made associate, even a dangerous one, is expected to show respect and absorb a certain amount of humiliation if it comes from above. That is brutal, but it is true. So, from within the rules of mob life, Tommy is in the wrong much earlier and much more completely than a normal viewer might first realize. His tone is wrong. His refusal to play along is wrong. His pushback is wrong. His line about Billy having been away too long and not knowing he does not shine shoes anymore is not just personal frustration. It is a challenge to the hierarchy. It is Tommy basically saying, you have been gone, things have changed, and you do not get to talk to me like that anymore. Who is he to say that? That is Billy's point of view. Tommy is not made. Tommy does not get to redefine the terms. Tommy does not get to act like he and Billy are on the same level. That is why Billy's eventual apology is so interesting. He actually tries to cool it down. He says he was only kidding. He says he is sorry if he offended Tommy. And Tommy, to his credit, also apologizes. For one brief second, the whole thing seems like it might be over. And then Billy says it again. Now go home and get your fucking shine box. That line is the final turn of the knife because it comes after the apology, after the pause, after the moment when peace could have been restored. Which means one of two things is true. Either Billy always intended to hit Tommy with it one last time, or he genuinely tried to de-escalate, then got annoyed by the fact that he had to apologize to somebody below him and decided to reassert himself. Personally, I think it is probably the second one. Watching the scene, Billy does not look like a guy executing some grand plan. He looks like a guy who drinks, cools off for a second, then remembers he is still angry and still proud. He probably feels that if he leaves the moment there, after apologizing to Tommy, he loses face. He has now spoken to Tommy like an equal. Worse, he has spoken to him like a man whose feelings matter. In the logic of mob masculinity, that can feel humiliating. So Billy says the line because he wants the room to understand that he still controls it. He is saying, I can say what I want to you because I am Billy Bats, and what are you going to do about it? And this is where fault becomes a layered thing. Was Billy reckless? Absolutely. Was Billy needlessly humiliating Tommy? Yes. Was he playing with fire? Definitely. But was he violating the logic of his own world? Not really. That is the uncomfortable truth. Within mob hierarchy, Billy's behavior is not crazy. It is arrogant, provocative, and dangerous, but it is not irrational. He believes he is untouchable because, in theory, he is. He believes Tommy has to take it because, in theory, he does. He believes that if Tommy reacts physically, Tommy will be the one destroyed by the consequences. And on that last point, He is actually right. Tommy does pay for it with his life, eventually. So now let's talk about Tommy's side for a minute, because it would be too easy to reduce him to just a lunatic. Tommy is insane, yes, but the scene works because his insanity is attached to something very human: shame. Tommy hates being reminded of who he used to be. He hates that Billy knew him as a kid. He hates that Billy can puncture the myth he has built around himself. He hates that his girlfriend is there, that other guys are there, that the whole room is now being invited to laugh at him as if he is still nobody. He has spent years becoming feared, and one older guy with a better title walks in and suddenly makes him feel small again. That is the emotional engine of the entire scene. So when Tommy reacts, he is reacting not just to an insult, but to a collapse in status, a public collapse. And for someone like Tommy, that feels intolerable. Still, that does not excuse him. If anything, it condemns him more. Because this is where Tommy's deepest flaw is exposed. He cannot absorb humiliation. He cannot delay revenge. He cannot prioritize survival over pride. He cannot recognize when the right move is to shut up, smile, and live to see tomorrow. Billy is playing the game of rank. Tommy is playing the game of ego. And ego is the deadlier game. Now, there is another presence in the scene that makes it even more interesting, and that is Jimmy. Because while Billy and Tommy are clashing openly, Jimmy is doing something much colder. He is observing, nudging, framing, making little comments, and the more times you watch the scene, the creepier Jimmy becomes. He is not losing control like Tommy, and he is not drunk on rank like Billy. He is calculating. Jimmy has business reasons not to want Billy around. In real life, Jimmy had taken over some of Billy's operations while Billy was away, and now Billy wanted them back. The film hints at this when Billy says he came home and wants what he is supposed to get because he has mouths to feed. That line matters. It tells you that under all this emotion, there is money. And where there is money, Jimmy is never neutral. So when Tommy goes off, Jimmy may already be seeing opportunity. A feud between Billy and Tommy is not just emotional chaos. It could also solve a financial inconvenience. That is why Jimmy's calmness in the scene is so eerie. He is not panicking. He is reading, positioning, maybe even enjoying where this might go. And later, when Tommy tells Henry to keep Billy there, that line should be terrifying. It is one of those little movie moments that tells you the future in plain language. Billy should hear alarm bells. But why would he? He is made. He is protected. He thinks nobody in that room can actually do anything. Again, that is why the scene is so brilliant. Billy is not an idiot. He is operating with the wrong assumptions because the world has changed under his feet. So who is at fault? Here is my answer. If we are talking about basic human behavior, Tommy starts it. Tommy walks in with the wrong energy. Tommy is cold first. Tommy refuses basic courtesy. Tommy creates tension that did not need to exist. If he had simply greeted Billy like a normal person, I do not think the scene escalates the way it does. But once the tension begins, Billy absolutely chooses to escalate it further. He decides to humiliate Tommy instead of smooth things over. He reads Tommy's insecurity and goes right after it. So Billy is not innocent. He becomes the aggressor in the verbal part of the confrontation. However, if we are asking who is most at fault overall, especially in the moral and practical sense, I still think the answer is Tommy, because Tommy had every opportunity to keep his pride in check and did not, because Tommy was the one without the status to challenge Billy, because Tommy's response to humiliation is murder. And because in that world, if a made guy insults you and you are not made, the ugly truth is that you are expected to take it. That is why this scene is so tragic. Billy is wrong in the way a powerful man can be wrong and still feel safe. Tommy is wrong in the way an unstable man is wrong when he cannot bear reality. Billy is arrogant. Tommy is catastrophic. And that is why both men die from the same scene. Billy dies first because he misjudges how insane Tommy really is. Tommy dies later because he still cannot understand that mob hierarchy is bigger than his ego. In a strange way, this scene kills them both at the table. The beating just takes longer to arrive for one of them. And maybe that is why the scene is still so compelling. It is not just about a famous line or a shocking burst of violence. It is about two men trapped inside codes they cannot bend. Billy cannot let the younger guy disrespect him without answering. Tommy cannot let the older guy humiliate him without exploding. Both men are acting according to the logic that made them who they are, which means there is never really a peaceful version of this scene once the first crack appears. There is only the illusion that maybe this can still be laughed off. It cannot, and that is why when I look at Billy Batts versus Tommy, I come down here. Billy was provocative. Billy was reckless. Billy absolutely baited Tommy in the end. But Tommy was the one in the wrong on more levels, from the first cold greeting to the final act of violence. He failed socially, he failed strategically, he failed within mob protocol, and he failed morally. Billy embarrassed him. Tommy turned embarrassment into a death sentence. And in Goodfellas, that is the difference that matters most.